As I was sitting at my desk just now, contemplating different ideas and topics, I was listening to music. Rather, the music was distracting me, as I really like to listen to music. And normally when I do homework that requires a lot of concentration and an element of writing, or basically whenever I have to write a paper, I can't listen to music with words. I just end up listening to the music the whole time. I usually have to listen to some ambient music that blocks out everything else without taking my attention away from my work. But just as I was about to hop over to YouTube and pull up some ambient music, I heard the song Saltwater Room by Owl City, which was next in my playlist. I thought to myself, I can't turn off the music just yet. I love this song. And that's what prompted the thought, do I actually love that song? Or do I just like that song? And what's the difference? Fast forward a couple of minutes when I found an article written by Gary R. Hess. He published this article on the website Poem of Quotes, poemofquotes.com. And the article is called The Word Love is Overused. I couldn't find the exact date of publication, but the footer at the bottom informed me that it was published sometime between 2004 and 2017. Hess basically makes the case that the word love is the new like. People use love way too often. Upon reading this article, I first thought, hey, I could critique this article. It deals with a topic relating to love, and it's about a topic that intrigues me. But then I realized that it would be really hard to write a formal essay or paper on this article. I mean, how am I supposed to cite an article that could have been written yesterday, but could also have been written back when I was in 3rd grade? And along with that, Hess's article appears to be written so that the average person can read and understand what he's saying. I would feel way out of line trying to critique his paper by using the typical format of research papers. And speaking of which, why is it that papers are supposed to be super hard to understand? I mean, you read some papers or publications and it feels like the paper was written by a robot. All of the voice in the paper is just gone, and instead of using common words and phrases that people understand, these writers and publishers display their talents by proudly composing expanded, elaborate, interminable confabulations that only serve to perplex and unhinge the undistinguished individual. See, I know how to use a thesaurus too. But seriously, these papers only serve to put me to sleep, and to make homework more boring when I have to read them. Basically, this is a long way of saying that I don't want to write that kind of paper. I don't want to contribute to this problem. I just want to write something conversational, the kind of thing that I could say out loud and not sound like the architect from the second Matrix movie, in the part where most people fell asleep or just zoned out. So instead of writing a voiceless paper to try and lose the reader by the 3rd sentence, I'll just be writing a conversational commentary on Hess's article. The goal will be to make my point and still show that I know what I'm talking about, but to do so without sacrificing my voice and personality for an expanded vocabulary. If it helps, think of it like me speaking directly to you, face to face or on the radio, giving you my take on what Hess is saying here. To begin, Hess starts with a great opening line. The word love is used far too often in today's society. That's how you begin a paper right there. No opening hook, nothing to grab the reader's attention and make them want to read more, unless they disagree and want to refute the premise. Immediately, you can tell that Hess is writing a very serious article, one he clearly wants to be taken seriously. He doesn't want to mess around with anything that might make the paper less formal, like voice or casual conversation. Immediately, after opening with such a zinger, he pulls the definition of love from dictionary.com. The word is defined as a feeling of intense desire and attraction toward a person with whom one is disposed to make a pair, the emotion of sex and romance. This is not the meaning of what many teenagers and even adults use. Now, I myself don't disagree with this definition, but because I was curious, I went to dictionary.com and typed in love to see what it says. When the page opened, I read love. Noun. 1. A profoundly tender, passionate affection for another person. 2. A feeling of warm personal attachment or deep affection, as for a parent, child, or friend. 3. Sexual passion or desire. 4. A person toward whom love is felt, beloved person, sweetheart. And it continued. I listed 4 different definitions, but if you count only the definitions for love in which love is a noun, there are 14 different definitions. 14! And if you include love as a verb with and without an object, in a verb phrase, and in an idiom, like for the love of and in love, there are a total of 28 definitions. I mean, I don't really count the idioms, but still, that's 22 definitions for the same 4-letter word. What? Right off the bat, even before commenting on the rest of Hess's article, I think I found part of the issue here. Hess is referring to love in its true form, as an intense emotion that is kind of a combination of desire, care, affection, and goodwill all rolled into one. To Hess, love should only mean an emotion of this strength, not just a casual liking. Okay, admittedly, one of the definitions listed for love as a noun on dictionary.com is a score of 0, nothing. That's a tennis term. But one of the definitions above that is a strong predilection, enthusiasm, or liking for anything. Strong enthusiasm? That's a completely different feeling than a pure or romantic type of love, and I believe that's what Hess is addressing. Back to the article. Hess goes on to say the following. Many teens use the word just as any other without any actual meaning. It seems I love you means I like you far too often. With this, the meaning has become so far off that when told, a teenager shrugs it off as if it does not matter. I agree with Hess on this point, though it could be worth noting that Hess doesn't cite anything to back up his claims. They definitely feel like universal claims. I mean, I have personally experienced this sort of thing as well, such that if a friend of mine said she loved me, I tend to shrug it off and not believe they are using love the way Hess feels it should be used. So while I agree, I also realize this sort of thing is hard to prove or cite. But back to the article. Hess continues, however, love should definitely matter. It makes the world better. Love is what keeps the world running and keeps families together. Love is what makes a relationship last through the good times and the bad. Simply liking someone doesn't do that. Liking someone may eventually lead to this special feeling, however, it doesn't always. Right, okay. Again, I would love to see some sources here rather than just hearing some claims with no evidence, even if I agree completely. I want to comment here and say while liking can lead to love, love is way more than a stronger, more intense form of like. Hess addresses this in a bit, so I'll hold off on that point. Hess continues, I have heard young people, 14 to 15-year-olds, telling their boyfriends, girlfriends that they love them. Often the word holds no special meaning. It shouldn't be something you throw out at another person after just 2 weeks of being an acquaintance. He does spell acquaintance wrong, so I'll give him a C, so he can fix it. But this is accurate, and kinda sad. I feel like over time, people who've been using the word like to describe an emotion wanted to use something stronger to show they really meant it. Someone could say, I like strawberries, only to have someone else say, yeah, well, I love strawberries, in an effort to show that they like strawberries more. In this way, it almost sounds like a competition to see who likes strawberries more. Or how about this? One of my favorite songs to listen to as of recently is the song Smile by Ringmasters, a European barbershop quartet, and that's all I really know about the group. The tag, which is the ending of this song, of Smile, always makes me feel good inside. The chords are so perfect, the harmonies are unique and spot on, and it gives me chills every time. According to Hess, I should just say that I like this song. But since the song is really amazing, I want to differentiate between this one and any other song that I like, as I like this one more than I like a lot of other songs. But since this song is amazing, I want to differentiate between this one and any other song that I like, as I like this one more than a lot of other songs I like. You might say, why don't you just say you really like this song? And I do, I really like the song, but there are other songs that I also really like. But I really like this one even more than those, so I need a stronger word, right? I can't just say I really like this song, as that becomes clumsy very quickly. You see where I'm going with this? I'll say I love the song, which clearly shows I like this one way more than all those other songs I like. This same kind of trend, of needing to use stronger and stronger descriptions, is present with other words too. The word friend used to mean one of a few people who was very close to you. Now, a friend is just someone you don't hate. It's basically interchangeable with acquaintance. Now we have words like close friend, best friend, BFF, and bestie to differentiate between the people we really like as friends rather than those we don't hate. You know, this reminds me of a Calvin and Hobbes comic strip. Calvin is the supreme dictator for life, a title he gave himself in order to sound more prestigious in his top-secret club, Gross, get rid of slimy girls. After he gets in an argument with Hobbes, he tries to strip Hobbes of his title. As both president and court stenographer, Hobbes decides not to enter the verdict, choosing instead to promote himself to El Tigre Numero Uno. Flustered, Calvin says, oh yeah? Well then I promote myself to most highest, grandest, exalted, supreme, He is interrupted before he can finish, but you see what I mean? Sounds rather childish to keep making up words that sound better and more official, and yet our society does it naturally. Hess is complaining in his article that the word love used to mean so much more than it does now, and I think he's right. Returning to the Hess article, he continues, love is developed over a long period of time, which shows how much each person cares for each other. Love at first sight is not real. That is generally regarded to lust, which may be transformed into love, but does not begin as such. You cannot love someone you do not personally know, their personality, their likes, dislikes, how they eat their food, their favorite pet, their allergies, etc. Hess brings up a good point here, that love at first sight isn't real. Everyone wants it to be real, but that's because everyone wants things to be easy. If only I could just fall in love immediately with someone, and then live happily ever after. Real true love, the kind Hess is referring to, takes a lot of work. It takes time, commitment, and effort to love someone. If you aren't putting in a lot of effort, you aren't truly loving. Of course, at times it may not even feel like you're doing any work, but it's never always that easy. Real true love means you love the other person, even if the other person doesn't love you back. I need to make a comment here. The kind of love that Hess is referring to is a specific form of love. There are two kinds of love, uti and frui love. I'm not sure who first made this distinction, but Matthew Levering brought this up in The Theology of Augustine, an introductory guide to his most important works. Wait, I feel kind of silly now. Augustine developed this thought, and Matthew Levering just wrote a work about Augustine's theology. Anyway, Augustine's idea here is that there are two kinds of love. Uti refers to love in terms of utility and usability. Frui refers to love in terms of enjoyment. In other words, uti is loving someone or something because you can get something out of it, while frui is loving someone for who they are. Augustine's view is that you should only love objects in the uti sense. You should only love things for their purpose and usefulness, but not love the objects in and of themselves. To make this clear, suppose I have a laptop like the one I am using to write this paper. This laptop allows me to listen to music, communicate via email, and write papers without having to write with a physical pencil on a physical piece of paper. This is wonderful because my handwriting is terrible. Anyway, I love my laptop in the uti sense because I like how useful it is. This kind of love is not what Hess defines as love. It's really more of a like. I like my laptop because it's useful to me. But if my laptop and my younger brother were both in a burning building, should I go in and try to rescue my laptop instead of my brother? Of course not. My brother is a person, while my laptop is not. And in Augustine's terms, I love my brother in the fruity sense. I love him for who he is, not for how useful he is. According to Augustine and Professor Gilhooly, fruity love should never be directed towards objects, only people and God. But you can still have uti love for a person. I mean, I like that the lady who gives me haircuts every so often is able to give me a good haircut. I like her for her usefulness, as she provides a service that I can utilize and be content doing so. Now, it's important to realize that I shouldn't just love this lady as an object, solely in the UT sense. That's the behavior of sociopaths. They treat people like objects and only love, or like, people for their usefulness. Coming back to Hess, the kind of love that he is always referring to is fruity love, the love of someone for their intrinsic value. Hess is arguing in his article that people are using the word love incorrectly, and he's really saying that people are saying they love someone in the wrong way. The 14-year-old girl that tells her new boyfriend that she loves him, she actually means she loves him in the uti sense. She loves him because of what he does. He makes her feel satisfied, or he buys her flowers, or he fills some vacancy in her life. As soon as he stops doing all of these things, the girl dumps him. And why? Because she loved him for his usefulness, not for who he was. Hess wants people to realize that love should actually mean the fruity kind, particularly when used in a romantic setting. In this setting, love is how Hess describes it, complicated, something that happens over time and with a lot of effort. In fact, Hess's next paragraph is as follows. Love is when you would do anything, even put yourself in harm's way, so that your partner would not be injured. It is when you would jump in front of a speeding bullet to save your partner's life. It's when you cannot spend more than one moment without your love. It is when you think about her/him when you wake up and he/she is the last thing you think about before you sleep. Love cannot be replaced easily. Love is full of passion, faith, feeling, emotion, and happiness. Liking someone is not. Hess is probably not familiar with the distinction between uti and fruity love, but he has the concept. And I agree, love can't be replaced easily. If you love someone for who they are intrinsically, it's much harder for their actions to cause you to stop loving them. But if you only love someone because of what they do, how they make you feel, or what they buy for you, then you'll not be able to love them if they cease to be useful. Hess wraps up his article by saying, someone cannot claim to love unless that someone has a special deep feeling whenever seeing their partner. They must feel uplifted and have their fears taken away. Save the word for someone special. That way love will be special. It's a nice conclusion, even if the article started out rather bluntly, and while I agree with the points Hess brings up, I'm worried that he's fighting a lost battle. Society is constantly changing, and in this case, society is already beyond the point where love means a deep, meaningful emotion. Love is the new like, and BFF is the new friend. I'm even told orange is the new black. But even though I feel that Hess's article can't really change society, it can make a meaningful connection with at least a few of the people who read it. A few people may read it and suddenly realize the difference between loving someone and actually loving someone. Or, if nothing else, someone like me may read the article and figure out that yes, I actually do love the song Saltwater Room by Owl City. I love it in the uti sense, which is not the same kind of love that Hess discusses. But hey, I do love that song, and I also love Smile by Ringmasters. I just have to be careful that I don't love them more than I love my siblings, or my friends, or God. As Dr. Gilhooly famously said one day in class, proper love is a love that's in proportion.